Good morning and welcome to, I guess this is the first webcast in 2024. It is. Welcome to our first webcast here in 2024. I am Henrik Zangenberg.
And my name is Clara Petersen.
And today we're going to share with you some of the experiences on software negotiations through 2023.
Some of the, I guess you from the title of the webcast, you may expect some insane stories of skyrocketing prices.
Exactly. So
we're just gonna touch upon some of the main vendors and some of their strategies that we have some observations on during 2023. As you all probably experienced through the last year, you experienced that they have raised their prices, and this is just an example of some of the software vendors that, with an announcement, have raised the list price in 2023. So Microsoft is a very good example, where they have this currency harmonization argument, raising their prices between 9 to 20%. SAP, another one, between 8 to 10%, where IBM is also very eye-catching with the 24% increase on their list price during 2023. And as Henrik mentioned, there is a lot of explanations or justifications from the software vendors for the list price, typically general inflation and currency adjustments. But when we looked into this and calculated all the prices and had a more like macro perspective on it, these two factors could not fully justify the price increases. And from our participation and our benchmark in these negotiations show that in best case scenarios, these price increases could be negotiated away. But a general picture is that the majority of all the software vendors increased the list price significantly during the last year.
You could have a lot of, so there's the justification on the one hand, and we see great creativity, as you mentioned, in justifying price increases of, say, 25 or 24% as we saw here, or 20% for Microsoft, and even with Microsoft, that is on top of a price increase in 2022. So Microsoft clients are experiencing quite dramatic price increases.
So I remember from one client where they were trying to justify some of the price increases that they were both experiencing from, like, taking into account how their prices was from the previous agreement to the new agreement. And when we laid it out and calculated the year-on-year price increase, it was around 5 to 6%, which is combined, or looking into the inflation, is much more than the NPI.
Yeah. So basically, there's a lot of justification. Then you can, of course, try to speculate into what's really behind, and what's really behind, we believe, is a joint realization that they can do this, they can actually get away with this, and an expectation, we believe, from the stock market that shareholders expect software vendors to actually increase their prices and thereby increasing their shareholder value, their stock value. So there's a number of factors influencing this. Does that mean that you can do nothing about it? No, you can do something about it. But it is a completely new game. And today's webcast is really about the changes that we've seen in the way that you need to deal with this. Because we've been advising on software negotiations since 2009. But what we are seeing right now is a major tectonic shift in the way that you need to go about your software negotiations. You need to take a much more strategic view on this, and you need to spend more time on this, and you need to pay more attention if you want, say, these, as Clara mentioned, if you want these increases to go away or just partly to go away, well, you need to be harder on the negotiation than you used to be. So that's the main message. Things can be done, and over the course of the next 1.5 hours, we'll take you through some of the tactics that we've observed actually works. So yeah.
Yeah, so this is just from 2023, where Microsoft increased their, like a general price increase for currency harmonization for all cloud products purchased around the world. So this was justifying that taking several steps into aligning the pricing of our Microsoft cloud products, some of their wording, showing that based on the currency harmonization in Denmark and Norway and EU in general, the prices increased 11%. And Microsoft has just announced one of these again. I'll just do this one here from February 1st, whereas you see, especially in Sweden and Norway, the prices will increase again based on the currency.
Just too bad we're not in Brazil.
Yeah, yeah. So luckily for the companies in Brazil, you are getting maybe a price decrease.
Yeah.
But a general trend, as you can also see, that they are harmonization. How do you say? Harmonizing. Yeah. The currencies, but tendency is that they are increasing the prices.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
let's get back to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we can see, because we follow a lot of software negotiations on Microsoft, SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, and so on. The picture is basically the same. It has become increasingly difficult to negotiate. The negotiations. I mean, first of all negotiation starts with a price increase.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the.
And that's a significant price increase.
A significant price increase with a account manager that puts his or her face in serious phones and says, I'm sorry to say, but you know we are looking into significant price increases.
Yeah.
It's very costly to deliver software that we developed 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So you must understand.
And in many cases, the software increases or the prices increases more than what is being announced. So when you break it down and try to calculate what is the exact price increase for all the line items, you can start by probably just justifying that these price increases are higher than what is being announced.
The second thing we see, this is a common negotiation tactic, is to start by making things completely unrealistic and or unreasonable in the beginning, because then perhaps you can end up somewhere reasonable seen from the other side. The other thing is that the vendors tend to be a lot more stubborn in the negotiation, as we've used to see. So the first many iterations will have no changes at all.
Usually a little change in the first iteration, and then they just no movements afterwards.
That's true.
Yeah.
Those of you who've been to our previous software negotiation webcast know that we usually say it takes a lot of iteration. A software negotiation is like a Wagner opera. It really takes a long time to get to something reasonable. Well, this is more true now than ever.
Yeah.
So you really need to understand that this is a weaponized part of the tactics, is that to prolong and be extremely stubborn and not moving. But then we saw a new thing this year, or last year, 2023. We saw that escalation has become increasingly difficult. We've even, in 2 cases, or was it 3, at least in more than one case, suddenly the person that the de-escalation should go to was on vacation in both cases. So
and we'll come home maybe one day before the deadline.
Yeah. So very unfortunate that unfortunate she can't be here.
Yeah.
Even though it was a multi-million client, dollar client. It was a really big client in that geography.
Yeah. And this was the second escalation, where the first escalation was to the person below the management level, and the manager or the management level with the level below was then in place for the one that was on vacation.
Mm.
And she was like, no, can't do anything. No price movements here.
So expect the software vendor to be even more difficult to negotiate with. This, of course, should not make you give up. It should make you even more determined to do whatever you can and utilize the things that actually works that we'll get to. But understand it's getting increasingly difficult to negotiate with these companies. And as a consequence, it has become increasingly time consuming to negotiate with the big software vendors. You should prepare for a lot of iterations. You should prepare to ask for a lot of scenarios to keep the ball in play. And you should not fear exceeding the deadline. Yeah. Because that is a necessary part of these negotiations, is to actually move to and sometimes beyond the negotiation deadline, simply because that's where you'll get results that are acceptable. Yeah, this is a picture. We had a little discussion whether we should include the picture, but this is there's a lot of things going on in the software business right now. Yeah. And Broadcom is the biggest crook of them all, and has been for many years. We are not afraid to say that. Broadcom used to have a lot of the previous Computer Associate mainframe software in their portfolio. And what they did when they acquired Computer Associate was that they raised the mainframe software prices with more than 100%, and in some cases more than 200%. This is a very small market, right? The mainframe market is a small market. The Broadcom software is a small but visible part of the software stack on the mainframe. So this kind of went under the radar to some extent because it actually affected so few customers, the mainframe customers. But from our vantage point here in Petersen, it was extremely visible when Broadcom did that. This is Broadcom's CEO in front. He's a very good friend of Donald Trump, whatever that tells you. And the interesting thing here is that Broadcom just bought VMware. So now they're moving from the niche market of the mainframe into the mainstream market of hypervisor software for all of you. So we're just saying, brace for impact. Things will happen here. And obviously what you need to do is to prepare in negotiating your next VMware agreement. You need to prepare for the long play, because the long play with Broadcom will be a difficult one, because they have proven to be kind of the worst in the business in terms of raising prices and insisting on completely unjustified 100-200% price increases. So be careful here.
Yeah, so just to sum up what to expect in 2024, I guess 2023 was just the tip of the iceberg regarding the skyrocketing price increases that we have already observed. So brace yourself.
Yeah, we believe that 24 will be even crazier than 23. A lot of you will experience the full impact of these price increases in 24. If you didn't negotiate your, say, Microsoft or IBM agreement last year, you might have to do it in 24. So this is why we believe it's a good idea to take stock of what actually worked in 2023 for the clients that we've been involved with. What are the tactics that had a good impact on the negotiation?
Yeah, So overall, what worked during last year is tenacity on a whole new level. You need to be crazily stubborn in these negotiations and show that you are stubborn.
Stædighed in Danish. For those of you who don't know my favorite word, tenacity. So
and then you have to have a data-driven approach to both map out what is your usage, but the data is your best friend regarding to really map out what part of the software are you using and what part are you not using, which is some of the best arguments that we have seen. And then, as Henrik also mentioned, working beyond the deadlines. The deadline is an abstract sort of term, but you need to of course assess the risk, but you need to be prepared that you are going to work beyond the deadline. And then of course financial commitments. Some locked in money for the software vendors is of tremendous, it means a lot to them to make some sort of commitment as it's guaranteed income during the agreement period. And then purchasing some sort of smaller amounts of these strategic products. They are constantly developing new strategic products, both Microsoft and all the other software vendors, and purchasing a smaller amount of those that can potentially make you locked in, have worked tremendously well during the last year.
And I think the important thing here is you don't need to make a complete shift to the newer product, to the most strategic product for the vendor. You need to demonstrate a willingness to move that way, which is why purchasing just a smaller amount seems to have or has shown to have a good impact on the total pricing.
And a strategic product for the software vendors is typically where there are other players in the market. So buying their, for example, Microsoft security products is strategic for them as they will grow on these markets where there are several players.
With all the players, they typically also on the bundles, the E5 over the E3. For some of the other vendors, it is the newer versions of products, newer bundles that will work here. Obviously, if you're looking into the later two on this list, there's no surprise there. Obviously, the more money you promise to pay, the more willing the vendor will be to talk to you. But sometimes it's also about making it visible that you will be paying more money to the vendor over the course of the period. Do you expect? And we will use Microsoft a lot over this over the course of this presentation. But the points we make will be true for all the vendors. But for example, with Microsoft, if you're looking to work with Copilot, that is actually going to increase your total spend with Microsoft quite significantly. Make sure that is visible in a negotiation. Make sure that you make the total spend visible because that is a lever in the negotiation. But there's no surprise that the later two of the 5 points here on the list will have a positive impact. What we believe is equally important is that the first 3 points here is very much on the tactics that works here, and we will expand on those as we move along. Should I take this one? It's basically from our. This is from also from the book that we've written on negotiating software contracts. It's basically about preparing yourself for any kind of IT negotiation. It's important that you actually understand what you're negotiating. So make sure that you have people on board that understand why you are requesting the specific service and what substituting services you could buy or could be interested in buying and so on. Understand the products in front of you and the market and the dynamics of the market. And that's what we're giving you now. We're giving you a picture of the dynamics of this market. It is an aggressive market with massive price increases, vendors utilizing their de facto monopoly status. That is the dynamic of the market. And the pricing mechanism, it goes upwards, but it's also that the pricing mechanisms in bundling products and the license rules becoming increasingly complex is also something you need to understand. And when you're trying to game the negotiation, understanding the pricing mechanisms is extremely important. And please, utilize advisors here. It could be your reseller or it could be people like us in actually understanding what it means to replace one pricing mechanism regime with another, taking out products, buying instead of buying bundles, buying cheaper bundles and add-on products and so on. What works? How can you actually game the license model? Because that is still possible in a number of cases. Understand the people in front of you. Who are they?
And what is their mandate?
What's their mandate and their interest? How's their bonus calculated? Okay, here's the secret. Their bonus is calculated based on how much they sell you, but not only that, also they get more bonus on specific types of products over others. But their mandate is typically quite limited and increasingly getting limited, which is also part of how you actually go around this as a vendor. The stakeholder understand and the stakeholder landscape in your own organization. We won't go that much into that today. We have touched a lot upon that in other webcasts, but basically be aware that you will have people in your organization that talks to the vendor, people in technical departments, people in business units talking to the vendor, disclosing to the vendor that how dependent you are on the software, how much you really need this new piece of software, and controlling the flow of information before and during a negotiation is extremely important. So make sure you have all your ducks in a row when you start negotiating. Make sure that nobody speaks too much on what goes on. And then whenever you get a proposal, make sure you actually understand what was changed here compared to the previous proposal. Because it's often the devil is often in the detail here, is that you can get a proposal, it might seem cheaper, but it's not. But there might there might be specific points that actually demonstrates where they're willing to give you concessions that you can grab hold of and utilize. So understand the proposal in front of you. Yeah. This is a new slide, and it's basically this is about playing the long game
and fighting the monopolies that we are very much observing on the software market.
So what we see is a number of companies, and some of them are among the largest companies in the world, with huge resources, but also with a very long play. They have a long horizon for getting you more and more dependent on their software and raising the prices. What we see now is probably just the beginning of them taking over more and more of the budget, of the IT budgets of corporations. So they're playing a long game, while we see clients playing an extremely short game. So software negotiations are not seen as corporate strategic moves. They're seen as something we need to get done. Often we start too late. We don't put too much resources into it. People call us and say, "Can you come and help us?" And obviously we are happy to help, but we often see that we get into the process quite late, close to the deadline, and it is and often we see that client have new people doing this every third year, where they have to do the negotiations. There are a lot of prominent there's a lot of prominent exceptions of people, and I've seen several of you on the webcast today that actually has done this many years. So I do know that there's a lot of you that has done this for the majority of your grown-up life, as we have here. But it is, for many corporations, it is an under-prioritized area. And therefore we think that the main shift you need to implement now is a short view to a long view shift. So whenever you go into a negotiation, play the long game. You might lose the next battle, but prepare yourself for the one after that. Because the vendors have done that for many years, and they're about to win now. They're about to gain full control of your IT budget. So there's the negotiation position now. That's the first row, and this is an example from a hypothetical client, right? So you could make a similar chart like this one, and these are three important, but it's not an exhaustive list. But these are three important areas where we believe you should play the short and the long game. So replacement options. Can you replace the software you're negotiating?
Do you have the plan, right?
Do you have the plan?
Put in front of the vendor that shows exactly how you're going to replace their products.
Exactly, and we know that there are a lot of products where that is that is a very difficult plan, and a very expensive plan. But it is something that you should consider. So in this case, you can say that the negotiation position right now is that this client can only replace limited parts of the portfolio. But to prepare a more extensive replacement plan for the majority or a big part of the licenses would take us a year. So what should we do? We should do that. We should prepare that exit plan for the majority of the products in the software portfolio. If you're using Citrix, VMware or Microsoft will be the devil's alternatives, and we do know that they are not overly attractive, but they are replacement options that you should look into. There might be even an architectural scenario where you wouldn't need the Citrix products, but those are the things that you need to put into the box of preparing the plan B. Extension of options. It is extremely important to have extension options written into your contracts. So you have a 3-year Microsoft contract, there should be an extension option to extend that contract for another, say, 2 years with some kind of ceiling as to the price increases after the first 3 years. Because that is giving you a much better negotiation position next time around. So currently this client is negotiating without that option in the contract. So they're just, left to their own devices here. But in negotiating this contract, they should try and include some extension options so that the next negotiation would be improved. The last example on playing the long versus the short game is on the relationship. So who do you actually have a relationship with? And in this case, like in most cases, the relationship is with a low-level account manager within the vendor. Now, we've been advising clients that had a strategic relationship on CXO level with people at the vendor, because with similar high-ranking people in the vendor's organization. This is possible if you're a big client, if you have a significant spend with the software vendor, and if the software vendor is actually a strategic part of the way you want to develop your organization. But hey, if you're moving into utilizing AI and Copilot and so on, Microsoft is going to be a strategic vendor in developing your organization. So it does make sense to try and cultivate a relationship between C-level executives in your company and C-level in at least the regional organization at Microsoft. And that's just an example. The same would be true with SAP, and also to a large extent with Oracle. So the long-term gameplay here is to establish relationships on more senior level in the organization, because then you have your escalation path ready and open whenever you need it in the negotiation. This is something you need every third year, but you need to cultivate it in the period in between. We can simply see, again, what worked well in 2023. Well, those companies, quite few, but those companies that actually had cultivated that kind of relationship was able to get a better escalation, better results out of the escalation than those that didn't.
And then just for the long game, the agreement that you are negotiating now is going to be the point of view for the next negotiation.
Exactly.
So it's constantly about playing the long game, because it's going to determine how you're going to stand in the next negotiation.
And playing the long game is exactly, it's about what we call repeated games. And in repeated games, there is a memory of some kind. And also being difficult in the negotiation is important, simply because it tells the vendor that you will be difficult. I mean, that you're not a walkover.
Yeah.
Because if you are a walkover, if it's too easy to make you accept the price increases, that is being remembered next time around.
You can be sure that it's recorded in the software vendor, that they have written down how you handled the negotiation and how difficult you were. Yeah.
One of the things that we will get back to is about segmenting your vendors, and that is simply because you are being segmented, you are being analyzed, you are being recorded in terms of how you actually acted in the negotiation, which is why you need to do it with tenacity and with intelligence and with the long lights on here. And if you have the choice between two options that are equally bad for you right now, look at the long game. Take the option that will give you a better negotiation position next time around. Because suddenly 3 years passed, and you are here, and you're here again. The other thing is, like in every negotiation, it is also about understanding what has value on the part of the other side. And when we talk about the relationship part, what has value to a senior executive at a software vendor? Well, one of the things that have value are good examples. Good examples of how their services, how their products are being used in a strategic way. This is what your top management can give the execs at a software vendor. That is the talk about how the products are of strategic value to your company. That is a good talking point for that exec in other conversations. It is not just as simple as that, but that is part of the value proposition you can provide. So relationship as number 3 is extremely important.
Yeah, and then I think we already touched upon this a bit, but there is a difference between the short and the long run. And the short run is what you do just before the negotiation, how you prepare for the negotiation. So you make sure that you have mapped your usage and your needs. You begin early, and you're stubborn. The tenacity is rewarded, and you know your target zone. You know the benchmark before you enter the negotiation. And this is because if you don't know where you're gonna land during the negotiation, you don't know the road to the goal. And then there's the long run, where you have the plan B, and you have it established before you enter it, so you can put the plan in front of the vendor and say that if you are not meeting our requirements on this product, we have a plan here that specifically tells you how we're gonna swap that out and use another product. And then the terms for protection against price increases. This could be an extension option where you have protection against the prices can at max be increased with 5%, for example. Because then when you are entering the next negotiation and if they are not meeting your requirements, you can activate the term and then have a longer time period where you can look into to establishing the plan Bs.
And the extension option is your BATNA in the next negotiation, because you don't really want to use it. You actually do want to enter into a new 3-year agreement with another extension period, but your extension option is your BATNA. Everybody knows that in the room, so that is kind of the floor for any negotiation. And right now, most of you will be negotiating with no floor at all. Just the sky is the limit for how high the prices can actually go, right? So, yeah.
And then you have to make sure that you have a very clear governance about how you are changing the vendors inside your organization. So how you are changing vendors.
And also the fact that changing a vendor is something that's actually doable, right? If you go around in your organization and ask people, do you think it's realistic that we would move to another address? People will say, yeah, that's realistic. If you ask them, do you think it's realistic that the entire top management would be replaced? They would say, yeah, that's realistic too. Do you think it's realistic that we could get in a situation where half of the people in this company were fired? They would say, yeah, that's realistic. Do you think it's realistic that we would replace Microsoft Word? No, that's completely unrealistic. Right, and that is about the governance, that kind of truth that a number of software products simply can't be replaced is in place, and you need to fight that. Everything can be replaced. An organization can't survive without Microsoft Office. It might not be it might be pretty annoying for a period of time. But you could at least consider doing it for half of the employees that are not using the Office suite that much, your blue-collar workers or whatever. So there, and the governance around those decisions is extremely important, and the fact that you can do it. And one of the things we believe you need to do in the period to come is to demonstrate that we actually can do that. Because you are putting yourself voluntarily into a prison where you're becoming a hostage of the software vendors. They've actually tricked you into believing that you simply cannot live without their products. But guess what? You can. So because we've seen in many cases that is of course possible.
And it may not be the preferred scenario, but it's extremely important to have this scenario mapped out and visible for the vendor.
Exactly.
Because that's the only threat that they will respond to.
We believe that every company, private or public, should segment their vendors into what we call the A team, the B vendors, and the exit list. The A team is where you have and the most important thing is you should segment your vendors, and you should make it public to the vendors where they are, whether they are a strategic vendor, an A-team vendor, whether they are on the exit list or just in the middle B vendor list. So what we say is, if you are an A vendor, you have actually demonstrated through negotiations that you are willing to give us software at prices that are competitive. We've benchmarked you, and we know that we get prices that are in line with what others have achieved in the market. So we don't expect to have perhaps the best prices, but at least we expect to have prices that are in line with what some of the best deals in our size brackets, what they are. In return for giving us good prices, we will share our plans with you. We will make it more easy for you, dear vendor, to sell us more products. We will make sure that we have governance on several levels in the organization, so management people at the vendor will have access to and talk to management members of our organization. We will expect you as a vendor to be proactive, basically help us buy more, but also help us understand how we can utilize and optimize the use of the products, participate in architectural discussion and moving forward. And there will be put contract terms in place to ensure fair pricing over the lifespan of the relationship. We've seen some of the largest corporations in Denmark. They have also with software vendors, they have agreements in place to say that they want to be a preferred client, and defining that by that they will get best pricing. That's one way of trying to do that. But if you're on the A team, if you're on the A list, we will share information with you. If you're a B vendor, then we do have a plan B ready. That means that we do know how long time it will take and how much it will cost to replace you. So that's the consequence of being there as a B vendor. A B vendor is one that we're using as long as we believe it's reasonable.
And a large group of the vendors will be in the B vendors.
Any company can only have so many A-team vendors because they require some attention. But it's also a way of demonstrating you're important to us, and by making sure that we have these common goals, we also make sure that we have a good pricing on the products. And then you will have vendors on the exit list. The exit list is where we have decided that this vendor will be replaced. There is some time plan for that. Because they have crossed some red lines, either on quality, on price, or relationship. And since we introduced this model, one of our clients have actually went public with the Region Hovedstaden, the hospital region here in Copenhagen. They went out and said that they've actually put one vendor on the exit list because the negotiation with that vendor actually failed to produce acceptable, benchmarkable results. So that is a clear message, not only to that vendor, because there the game is kind of lost, but it's a clear message to all vendors. That is why we say you need to weaponize the monopolist's interest. A monopolist is only a monopolist in this space as long as we let them be monopolists. And if we demonstrate to the community as a whole that we are willing in select cases to actually replace one vendor with another, even though it's expensive, time consuming, cumbersome and so on, but we're willing to do it, we demonstrate that we are willing to change the game. And we believe that this is what you call your different segments and so on. It doesn't really matter, but the fact that you segment your vendors, you are transparent about the segmentation, and you make that also part of the negotiation with the vendor, that there's a lot to be gained by being an A-team vendor, and there's a lot to be lost by being on the exit list. That is also putting an element into the negotiation, and you are one part of your BATNA is to put the vendor on the exit list. The BATNA, the best alternative to the negotiated agreement, is not just accepting the current agreement, it's accepting a short-term agreement to actually exit from the vendor and put them on the exit list.
And what is extremely important to know here is that the vendors do segment their clients. So it is extremely important to segment the vendors as the vendors are already doing it.
Yeah.
They are segmenting their clients into who is the strategic clients we have and who is the easy clients that will accept the price increases, is easy to negotiate with, etc.
And Daud asked a question here in the chat: is the segmentation, the A-team, not a dangerous strategy from customer perspective if we consider vendor lock-in? Well, you could say that nothing comes without a risk. So is there some kind of a risk to this? Yeah, there might be the risk that you get deeper into the lock-in, but that is why being on the A-team requires the vendor to constantly demonstrate that the pricing, or through benchmarking or similar measures, that you constantly get reassured that you have reasonable pricing, that they do not take advantage of what you could say partial lock-in that the A-team status could lead to. So basically what we're saying is, if you're on the A list or the A-team, then we will share things with you and we will work with you closely as long as you are reasonable. The minute you're not reasonable, we will move you on the B list or perhaps go directly to the exit list. But at least as soon as we realize that you are not giving us the best prices, then we will start developing a plan B, and you will be moved from the A-team list into the B vendor pool, and therefore we will stop sharing so many plans with you, and you will lose some benefits that you had on the A list. And if you go to the account management school, the School of Account Management, you will learn on day one that being close to the client and understanding where the client is moving is one of the most important things in account management. So helping the account manager understanding where you're moving is giving them a big gift. Taking that away, as you do from when you move from A to B, is actually making the situation more difficult for the account manager, and you're moving one step closer to the exit list. So yeah, it comes with, you could say, what I would say a small risk that's worth paying in exchange for making it visible that you take back some kind of control here in segmenting the segmenting the vendors. And when we presented this the first time, I was approached by a vendor representative that laughed a little and said, "Okay, these are new times, so so clients will start segmenting us like we've done with the clients for 25 years." So they have seen this coming to some extent, but it is we believe it is an important change that you need to implement in 2024 if you want to take back some kind of control in these negotiations. I hope it makes sense.
Yeah. So So what we see now is also a whole mindset shift about software and a whole regime shift about how you negotiate software, which means that the overall strategy needs to be changed. So for you as clients, it's important to communicate the long-term plan, whether it's sticking with the vendor or replacing them with another vendor, but also demonstrating your willingness to change vendors at a cost. So you know that it is costful to change a vendor, but you need to demonstrate your willingness to do it. And whether the vendor is on the X list, you need to prefer the short-term contracts where you have the possibility to change the vendor and initiate the plans on changing them. And then you need to insist on escalation, and this we will also get a little bit back to, but you need to insist on escalation early on in the process, because it will take time, and people will be on vacation, and they will be sick, and so on, and what else excuse that we have heard from the software vendor. So you need to insist on the escalation early on in the process when you are negotiating the software. And then you need to weaponize the deadline to your advantage instead of theirs.
And one way to do that, I mean, typically they weaponize the deadline. In all the negotiations we've seen, vendors have succeeded in making clients think that Armageddon will hit them if they get beyond the deadline. The sun will not rise. The earth will be inhabited by zombies. The nuclear mushroom cloud will be over your city when you wake up the morning after you didn't actually meet the negotiation deadline. And well, here's a secret. Yeah. That's not the scenario.
And the sun will rise again tomorrow.
Yeah, the sun will rise together again. It might be behind clouds of snow, but the sun will get up the day after. Yeah. So this is a deadline that is completely constructed by the vendor. Nothing really substantial should happen on the other side of the deadline. And now you have to scenario play the situation where you actually get beyond the deadline. Well, one thing is sure, it will harm to some extent it will harm the account manager. It might harm them on their bonus or stuff like that. But to the point where it will harm you, where they will shut down your licenses, where they will do you harm. Well, now try and construct scenarios where that would be completely unheard of. For example, you're negotiating to the deadline. There are details you can't agree on, and suddenly the person at your organization is not available for the physical signature. I mean, suddenly it's not possible to actually sign the contract. Do you think the vendor would actually, in that situation, shut down the licenses? No, obviously not. Because what we are talking about is a commercial disagreement that needs to be solved. And you should just demonstrate your willingness to pay. You could even put a substantial amount of money into an escrow account or something like that to make sure that they understand that, yes, money is actually available to be paid. We just need to agree on the amount. So weaponize the deadline. Make sure that you don't really care about this. And this is much easier if you started well in advance. So if you've negotiated for say 6 months and you're getting to the point of the deadline, then there's no reason in saying, well, you didn't spend enough time, dear client, on this negotiation. We spend a lot of time. We're just not there yet. And therefore, weaponizing the deadline to your advantage instead of theirs is extremely important in these. Do not fear the deadline. The deadline is your friend because you can go beyond it, and that will actually improve your negotiation position significantly, because then a lot of the people in the vendor organization are under pressure to actually enter into an agreement with you. And then the last one.
Yeah, you need to be extremely creative in finding all the new options and kill them with requests for alternative proposals. And this is to keep the ball in play. It's extremely relevant and important to keep the ball in play when you are negotiating with these vendors. Because they will shut down fairly early on if you don't have all these requests that can possibly change how you are having the products in the portfolio and all the items, and what will initiate discount, and how that will be. Then you can figure that out, how the discount will be given from the vendor.
Yep, it's this in some instances is a game of simple combinatorics. It's about saying, okay, so if I bought this product and this product and this product, what would your proposal look like? And you get a proposal, and then you say, okay, if I replace this product with this product, and then you can ask for 5 different variants in 5 different proposals.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're asking an employee to work late, or you're asking your children to tidy up their room. You're actually asking someone who wants to sell you something to give you a good proposal. So you can just ask all the questions you want. You can be completely not unrealistic, but you can be unreasonable in asking all kinds of questions. You should do that. You should be creative in asking for new proposals and make them spend their time on recalculating, because what happens is that during that process of discussing different proposals, most likely you will see openings where some combinations of buying new products with existing products will actually give you some kind of discount.
Swallow your pride, be annoying, you're the client.
Exactly. Yeah. When a vendor is on the B list, say you're negotiating with Citrix, for example, what you should be, then you should have a plan B, and the plan B could be either a Microsoft or a VMware option, for example, or changing the architecture altogether. One of the things you should do in a negotiation with a B vendor that is now becoming unreasonable is to actually demonstrate what plan B look like. And plan B is typically an alternative product that you can buy at a substantial discount, because that vendor will be very willing to give you a good price, at least in the first negotiation. They will be willing to give you a good price, and perhaps even with extension options, as we talked about before, which you should definitely have. But they will be able to give you a good price because you're in a good negotiation position. And then you will add the transition costs, of course, to make that the full business case. And in those cases, it's quite important to demonstrate that the new vendor, the alternative vendor, has a cost that is so attractive that it actually justifies quite a high transition cost, which is usually the case. So replacing Citrix with VMware, which, by the way, would be Mr. Tan, the good friend of Trump that we saw before, that might not. I mean, there's a lot of things to be said about that plan B.
Assess the risk.
Assess the risk, but demonstrating that you actually have that kind of figures, that's what you're looking at right now, is typically something that works in negotiations. Not always, but it's typically good. Yeah.
So overall, change the overall strategy before you enter these software negotiations. There is a whole regime shift, and how it's like a snowball rolling down the mountain that is just getting bigger and bigger. that's the profit for the software vendors.
and really, as you can probably imagine, we believe that you need to spend quite a lot of calendar time, but also quite a lot of actual time on this. You're negotiating about more and more money, and you should expect to spend more and more time on this.
And the software is going to be a bigger and bigger part of the whole IT budget. So
yeah. Okay, moving back to some of the short-term things that's important. That's about killing it with data.
Killing it with data and have a data-driven approach. And the first step is of course to know what are you using. So how are you using the software? So this is a case example from an SAP client where the license user split was 40% on the professional and limited professional and 20% on the employee. And how we do it is that we have a tool called SubSoup where we go down and measure on each transaction on how the actual usage split should be, where we measured a significantly over licensing for the client, where we saw that actually 67% of the client could have an employee license and still manage and do the same transactions as they were before. So this the implication is that there is an 89% price reduction for every license converted from the professional license to the employee license. So this was quite a significant price decrease or price reduction for this client, where we had this whole a shift from the professional or limited professional license to the actual employee license. And as we manage on each of the transactional levels, this is a direct price reduction that you simply just activate. Yeah.
So in some cases you're simply over-provisioned in terms of software. You're paying for the wrong version, the wrong user type, so on. So make sure that you understand what you're buying, and make sure that you optimize on that. That's and the SAP example is really on the user type. On Microsoft, it's more about how they use it.
How they use it, and more like a hypothesis analysis where you segment your users based on the blue and the white colors, and then analyze how they use their Microsoft products. And as we see on the bottom, this client has a fairly large amount of the white color users, where we see a fairly distributed usage across the users, where we have only 2% that are inactive.
Let's just explain how the graph works.
Yeah. So the graph works that based on the number of activities, we count how many activities each user in the organization, how many activities each user have. And that is based on mail activity and meeting activity and Word and Excel usage and PowerPoint and all the activities that we can measure based on their AD data. And then we map out how many of these activities does one user have during, for example, a month, or that could be 3 months, or whatever time period that will work for you.
This, I think, is on a monthly
basis. Yeah.
So basically, the graph says that on the white collar users in the lower rectangle, it says that between 0 and 100 activities, which is very low for a month, we have 1,468 users
in this category. Yeah. And then all the way to the right, we have 1,015 users having more than 701 activities during the month. And then for the same applies for the blue color. But for the white color, we see a fairly distributed number of activities that we have measured for this month. As we see when we go up to the blue collar workers, we see that almost every blue collar workers, or what is it, 2/3 part of the users, are having low to none activity performed during this month. And this means that 57% of all the users perform less than 250 activities per month, and a large amount of these users are also inactive, so they have not even used mail or calendar or meeting or Excel, PowerPoint, no activity during this month. And the same and even further applies for the external users, where we see that 1,509 users have 0 to 100 activities per month. And this is important because this makes you able to segment your users and how and what kind of license they should have in Microsoft. So
yeah, you can even ask the question whether they need Microsoft.
Yeah,
Going back
exactly.
to Jan's question, yeah, could we replace Microsoft?
Exactly.
Well, perhaps for blue collar and external users, since
Yeah.
we could
Yeah.
we could actually give them another
Exactly.
suite.
And for this client here, they were all having an E3 license, which does make sense for the white collar users. They send emails, they participate in meetings, and they use their Microsoft Office. But for the blue collar and the external users, they have no usage of the license. So the first thing that you can ask is, can we downgrade them to perhaps an F3? And the next step is, do they even need a license?
Exactly. So this is the data-driven approach. How does that work in a negotiation?
So the first argument is that, of course, Microsoft won't lose don't want to lose some of the licensing, that the current organization are now having an E3 license, and downgrading those to an F3 or perhaps even terminating these users is an extremely unattractive scenario for Microsoft. So how they typically handle it, or how we have observed it being handled by Microsoft, is that they segment the E3 users. So we will have an E3 license in the proposal that is for the white collar user, and that will be to the full price, and having some applied discount, whether how much that will be negotiated. And then we will have a blue collar E3 license or an external E3 license that will have a tremendous price reduction from Microsoft, because they're not interested in swapping from the E3 to the F3, because the E3 license have a much higher potential of a login that the blue collar or the external users potentially will activate during the next period. So that will not be attractive for Microsoft.
This works.
This works, yeah.
I mean, getting the data on the table, demonstrating we know our usage, and this gives us alternatives long term.
Yeah.
Not in completely replacing you, which we could of course do, but in replacing part of the usage and thereby reducing your footprint. Why is it important for them to have, for example, E3 for all users? Well, because that gives the login and the options for later to sell security products and so on that span the entire portfolio of usage in the organization. So this actually works.
Yeah. So this was based on another AD analysis where this is what the assets was. That was the 13,500 E3 licenses. But optimizing this means a tremendous reduction from the E3 to the frontline category of the F3 license. And swapping and optimizing the licensing for the users, we're giving the blue collar workers an F3 and the external consultants giving them an Office 365 E1 and then an EMS E3 on top of that, means a reduction of 25% when you optimize the license plans and terminating all the inactive users. So this is a lot of income for Microsoft that they are missing in the coming period if you optimize your license plans based on the data. So this is why it is so important for Microsoft that you keep the E3 license, maybe to a little higher price than the F3, but nonetheless you will stick to the license plan and potentially in the future upgrade to an E5. There's
a tendency that our clients like the clean setup. Everybody is using the same license. It's easier that way, right? But it is a lot more expensive, and if you just stick to that as the same product and the same price, Your alternative is different products, different prices. Microsoft's alternative is same product, different prices. So it's basically selling you the E3 at a price that would correspond to this.
Exactly.
But you need to, during the negotiation, you need to demonstrate that you can actually use your way around.
Yeah. And then you need to know the benchmark before you enter the negotiation. You need to know what are others paying for the same service at this vendor. From our Microsoft database, we have on the left side, we have a box plot showing all the different levels and the amount of discount that we have observed on the E3 license. So this shows that even though the level D typically, from Microsoft point of view, get the best prices, you are a big client, a very strategic client for us, we have observed a lower discount than the best discount observed as a level A client.
Yeah, there's a huge variance. That's perhaps the most important.
Exactly.
And what we see right now, with significant price increases, some clients that are actually able to make the price increases go away, and others that will accept the full price increase, this variance will become even bigger.
Yeah.
So we are moving into a territory now. Don't expect your software prices to shrink. I mean that's. Yeah. But expect the variance between what different companies with similar consumption paying. Expect that variance to become bigger.
Yeah.
And it's quite big already.
Exactly.
And the bigger you are as a client, the more, the better a sales rep you will meet, and therefore they will try to basically move you down the bracket here.
So what we always say is that the biggest client doesn't always get the best discounts; they get the best sales rep.
Which is what this box plot basically also shows.
Yeah.
It obviously shows that the best in pricing does depend on your size.
Exactly,
So,
and that is also what is shown on the right side, where including the strategic products, as we also mentioned, will trigger the higher discounts. But of course, the biggest organizations or the biggest clients will or can get the best discounts. They will not get it, but they can get it.
But being on level A, you still have a lot of maneuver room, as you can see, from getting no discount to getting quite a significant discount. This slide just to demonstrate that there's a lot of strategic products where Microsoft, in this case Microsoft, will have an interest in making you buy these products. So understand that putting them into the mix will always have a positive effect on the negotiation, because it rewards, because the account manager is rewarded on actually putting these things into the negotiation.
Yeah, and just as also mentioned, these strategic products have a lot of alternatives. Why they are pushing it so hard? Because once you're locked in on their product, it will be more difficult to swap to the alternative.
Understand the pricing of the alternative, of course, and use that as a lever whenever considering any of these, either low-code or BI or cloud or anything. Make sure you understand the pricing dynamics of the alternatives and utilize that. So with Azure, for example, if you're committing some kind of Azure, if you have some kind of Azure commitment in your negotiation, make sure you understand the discount you should have for that, based on what you could get on AWS and Google. And again, if in doubt, call us. We are able to basically give you the numbers on the differences here. Yeah. I think the tenacity, I think, is the last thing we'll touch upon here. Is just to say the tenacity is more important now than ever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and you should prepare for a breakdown in the negotiations.
Yeah.
That should be part of your plans when you are preparing for the negotiations. And as we also mentioned, prepare for early escalations because when escalation is solely about having someone higher up also say no. But it accomplishes two things. It demonstrates that you are serious and credible to the breakdown, or the breakdown will be credible when it happens. And then it initiates a conversation with a negotiator with a bigger mandate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because
so that is why you need to escalate.
Yeah. The people at the table will not have the mandate you need to get into the benchmarking bracket of attractive pricing.
Yeah. And then you need to keep the ball in play, kill them with proposal or request for proposals, and then prepare for the breakdown just before the negotiation deadline.
And then know that best and final, which is...
I think we say this every time, but the best and final is not the best and final. We have seen, I think, up to version 6 of best and final. So it's simply a way of the vendor trying to push you into to their, how to say it, but trying to get you to believe that they cannot move more on the prices.
Yeah.
This is the best and final. This is something we have never done before. This is and we have even increased our discount a little bit higher than we did on the last negotiation period, something like that. Yeah, it's never the best and final.
Oh.
Yeah.
And ensure that you play the long game. And by the way, they can be very convincing in saying that this, I've really tried all I could. You know, I asked basically all the people in the entire building now, and some outside it as well. But and the last thing is, as we talked about, play the long game.
Yeah.
Understand that what you do now sets the basis for what you do next time, but also you might not be able to get all you want this time, but try and prepare the ground for a good negotiation next time. Also, so have both the short and the long play in mind when you prepare your negotiation. And with this, we are at our time limit.
Yeah.
Always feel free to call us or write us.
You know where to find us.
You know where to find us. And thank you for seeing you all on this, the first webinar of 2024. Hope to see you soon.
Otherwise, just thank you all.